No one likes to be a victim of fraud. And this is especially true when it comes to charity fraud. We give our hard-earned money to an organization that we believe is trying to deal with a problem in our society, and we suddenly find out that that money went to line the pockets of some individual who could care less about that cause. But fortunately, there are law enforcement organizations out there trying to protect us. And today, we're going to talk to some of them as they deal with the specific topic of veterans charity fraud. Yael, tell us how your office is involved in combating charity fraud. What role does your office play?
The New York Attorney General's office has a department dedicated to overseeing charities called the Charities Bureau. And within the Charities Bureau, we have a section called the Enforcement Section. And within the Enforcement Section, we investigate and prosecute charities fraud.
So let's talk about veterans charity fraud in particular, because your organization was recently involved in an action regarding a veterans charity. Can you tell us about that?
On the local level, we recently shut down an organization called the Wounded Warriors Foundation of Orange County. Now, that organization was just a brazen scam. They used a name that sounded like the name of a well-known nationwide charity, and then the founder sold raffle tickets when he never intended to hold any sort of raffle and just pocketed the money. We also shut down an organization called the National Vietnam Veterans Foundation. Now, this organization purported to be a nationwide charity. Really, we found that they were a shell organization and they used professional fundraisers who kept 90% of the money that was raised in the name of Vietnam veterans. The money that was left after the fundraisers took their cut then went straight into the pockets of the board of directors. We found that funds earmarked for emergency assistance to Vietnam veterans were pocketed by the foundation's president.
So with regard to these charities, how were donors actually contacted, and how did you actually find out about these organizations?
In the case of the National Vietnam Veterans, potential donors were called and then received mailers. Sometimes these mailers included pledge forms for pledges that the donors didn't really give. We got involved because we reviewed the organization's filings with us and saw a whole bunch of red flags. High expenditures, lots of money to the fundraisers, and program services that just sounded too good to be true. So our office issued a subpoena, and then shortly after we did, CNN actually ran an expose on the organization's president.
Tell us about some of the deceptive claims, if there were any, that this organization or these organizations made.
They made the kind of deceptive claims that you often hear, that they were providing assistance to Vietnam veterans, that they were sending care packages, and helping veterans find necessary resources. Now, in fact, what we found was that these organizations did little to nothing of the sort.
Do you have any idea how much money donors actually gave to these groups?
In the case of the Wounded Warriors Foundation of Orange County, it was a few $1,000s, and we got that money restored. In the case of the National Vietnam Veterans Foundation, over the 6 years that our investigation covered, this organization raised over $28 million from generous Americans. Of that, $24 million went to their fundraisers.
So how was it that this could persist for so long without anyone knowing?
That's a good question. What happened here was that the board of directors of this organization was in on the scam. Generally speaking, we count on boards of directors to be the ones providing oversight, to be the ones protecting the charitable mission and overseeing the organization. When the board of directors is in on it and they work with fundraisers to cook the books, it's very hard to find.
How did your office get involved? And throughout the case, were you working with others around the country on any of these cases?
Our office got involved investigating the National Vietnam Veterans Foundation because we reviewed their filings and saw a whole lot of red flags. Now, one of these red flags was that the organization worked with a professional fundraiser that had a long history with our office. We had complaints against this fundraiser, and we knew that they had worked with a lot of other sham charities. Now, for this investigation, we worked closely with the Inspector General for the Department of Veterans Affairs, and we also worked with the Washington Field Office of the FBI.
In general, what can people expect when these cases come up in terms of how long it takes to prosecute?
They can take longer than the public would think that they're going to take. We need to take our time to make sure that we gather the evidence that we need to make a strong case. We need to be certain that our concerns are legitimate. And we want to also be sure that we give charities a chance to rectify any mistakes. Very often, we come across charities that maybe aren't aware of their duties and are willing to make improvements. However, on the other hand, if we find that a charity has really only been existing in order to exploit a popular cause, we're going to take a very different tact.
What was the result of this effort?
I'm proud to say that the investigation against the National Vietnam Veterans Foundation was very successful. We shut the organization down nationwide. We were able to get bans against the directors from ever being involved in any charities again, and we recovered some money, although a lot of it was gone by the time we got on the scene. In the case of the National Vietnam Veterans Foundation, the Department of Justice got involved. They prosecuted the founder and charged him with embezzlement. Eventually, he was sentenced to 12 to 18 months in prison.
Were you able to do anything with the fundraisers? Were there any actions brought against the fundraising firms?
That's a great question. We did then investigate the fundraiser who raised funds for the National Vietnam Veterans Foundation in New York. And about a year later, we shut them down too.
Why is it that you think donors give money to these organizations?
Well, Americans are generous people and we want to help. And of course, veterans are a popular cause. I think these fraudsters know their job and they know that Americans want to help the vulnerable.
What should donors do if they feel that they're somehow being solicited by an organization that's maybe making them a little uncomfortable?
They should, of course, not give under pressure. You should always feel free to ask for more information, to ask for written information, and then to give yourself time to do research and make a decision. Don't give in to pressure. We also encourage donors to make a giving plan so that you can think about, how do I want to spread my donor dollars over the course of the year? We also encourage donors who have suspicions about organizations to contact us. We have a complaint line. You can contact us through our website or over the phone. The New York AG has a website dedicated to charities issues. That's at www.charitiesnys.com. One very exciting development, Art, is that the states, along with our partners in the federal government, are in closer and closer communication. We are talking all the time. We are cooperating. We are sharing information. And that just makes us so much more effective.
Should we be concerned about charities in general as a result of these cases?
The charitable sector is so important, and there are so many charities that do wonderful work. We hope that our efforts really support the good charities, because we want to make sure that people can have faith in the charitable sector.
I'd like to thank our guests today and all of the charity officials around the country who work hard every day to protect us from charity fraud.